Proverbs chapter 8. Does not wisdom call out? Does not understanding raise her voice? At the highest point along the way where the paths meet, she takes her stand. Beside the gates leading into the city, at the entrance, she cries aloud, "To you, O people, I call out. I raise my voice to all humanity. You who are simple, gain prudence. You who are foolish, set your hearts on it. Listen, for I have trustworthy things to say. I open my lips to speak what is right. My mouth speaks what is true, for my lips detest wickedness. All the words of my mouth are just. None of them is crooked or perverse. To the discerning, all of them are right. They are upright to those who have found knowledge. Choose my instruction instead of silver, knowledge rather than choice gold. For wisdom is more precious than rubies, and nothing you desire can compare with her. I, wisdom, dwell together with prudence. I possess knowledge and discretion. To fear the Lord is to hate evil. I hate pride and arrogance, evil behavior and perverse speech. Counsel and sound judgment are mine. I have insight. I have power. By me, kings reign and rulers issue decrees that are just. By me, princes govern and nobles, all who rule on earth. I love those who love me, and those who seek me find me. With me are riches and honour, enduring wealth and prosperity. My fruit is better than fine gold. What I yield surpasses choice silver. I walk in the way of righteousness along the paths of justice, bestowing a rich inheritance on those who love me and making their treasuries full. The Lord brought me forth as the first of his works, before his deeds of old. I was formed long ages ago, at the very beginning, when the world came to be. When there were no watery depths, I was given birth. When there were no springs overflowing with water, before the mountains were settled in place, before the hills, I was given birth. Before he made the world, or its fields, or any of the dust of the earth. I was there when he set the heavens in place, when he marked out the horizon on the face of the deep, when he established the clouds above and fixed securely the fountains of the deep, when he gave the sea its boundary so that the waters would not overstep his command, and when he marked out the foundations of the earth. Then I was constantly at his side. I was filled with delight day after day, rejoicing always in his presence, rejoicing in his whole world and delighting in the human race. Now then, my children, listen to me. Blessed are those who keep my ways. Listen to my instruction and be wise. Do not disregard it. Blessed are those who listen to me, watching daily at my doors, waiting at my doorway. For those who find me find life and receive favour from the Lord. But those who fail to find me harm themselves. All who hate me love death.
Well, we're turning to Proverbs 8 and 9 this morning. For those who are unfamiliar with our ways of doing things here at Christ Church, our convention is simply to work through a book of the Bible, not to have the agenda set by me or anybody else, but to let God set it. So we're literally going chapter by chapter these past few weeks, going through the book of Proverbs. It's going to change slightly next week, because as we'll see, it's slightly more difficult to go systematically through the rest of this book from this point on, because of the nature of the book. But we are going to spend some time this morning opening up Proverbs 8 and 9, and why don't we ask God's help as we do? Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, these weeks gone by, we've been learning something of the value of wisdom. And our prayer this morning is simply that you would train our minds and our hearts and our lives to walk in that way more consistently and more fully and in a way that pleases you more. Amen. So let me ask, who is the king of prime time TV these days? What is it? What kind of shows, apart from the dramas and the sitcoms and so on, dominate the schedules? It used to be the quiz show, didn't it? Not that long ago, that dominated our TVs. Still a few of them around. Then it was the reality TV shows. They haven't exactly gone away either, have they? And then it was those endless shows about doing up your house or your garden or somebody else's or whatever it was, the makeover shows. But the big story of 21st century popular TV seems to be, what? It's a talent show, isn't it? The Voice, Bake Off, The Apprentice, Strictly, Britain's Got Talent, I'm a Celebrity, Dragon's Den, even Eurovision. Hundreds of these shows every week. Our viewing figures perhaps a bit past their peak now, but they're still huge. It doesn't matter what they show us or what kind of theme they take, but you see those contestants and one after another, you see the same begging, desperate expressions on their face. Look what I can do. Pick me. Pick me. Well, we've all been there, haven't we? Maybe not on TV. But making our pitch from time to time is just part of life, isn't it? Here are my football skills. Pick me for the team. Here are my A-level predictions. Pick me for a place. Here are my qualifications or my CV. Pick me for the job. But of course, in a society like ours, where the consumer is king, the truth is we get to sit on the other side of the desk quite a lot of the time, don't we? You buy a new phone or whatever it is, and what do you find? You find Vodafone and Three and Carphone Warehouse, EE, all the rest of them. They're all practically begging you. Look what we can do for you. More data, more coverage, cheaper prices. Pick me, pick me. What's interesting for us this morning, though, is that it's just that kind of appeal that's being made in this part of the Bible that we're looking at today, Proverbs 8 and 9. There's a smaller field here, just two contestants now, but each of them is apparently fighting it out for the approval of you and me, the readers. Each of the contestants on this show is offering their sales pitch and putting that invitation on the table. Pick me. First up, in verse 1 of chapter 9, that is just after we left off in the reading a moment ago, there is Lady Wisdom. So verse 1 of chapter 9, Wisdom has built her house, she has set up its 7 pillars, she has prepared her meat, mixed her wine, she's also set up her table, she's sent out her servants, she calls from the highest point of the city, let all who are simple come to my house. Pick me. To those who have no sense, she says, come, eat my food, drink the wine I have mixed, leave your simple ways and you'll live. Walk in the way of insight. That's quite an invitation, isn't it? Hard to say no to something like that. Food and drink galore. So nutritious that they can deliver a whole new experience of life. Who wouldn't want to RSVP with a whopping great yes please to a proposition like that? But before we do plug for Lady Wisdom, as I say, there is a second contestant here. Contestant number 2 appears to offer a similar menu at first sight. In fact, in some ways, it's even more appealing. She may not wow us straight out of the starting blocks. Verse 13, Folly is an unruly woman. She is simple. She knows nothing. But listen to what she has to say. Verse 14, she sits at the door of her house, on a seat at the highest point of the city, calling out to those who pass by, who go straight on their way, let all who are simple come to my house. Me. And just to add to the note of kind of illicit excitement, There's the thrill of the forbidden thrown into the mix. Stolen water, verse 17, is sweet. Food eaten in secret is delicious. The thing she fails to mention is the mortality statistics. Nobody comes out alive from her place. Not one. In fact, nobody comes out the front door at all. The house, it turns out, is just a corridor to the graveyard beyond. Verse 18. Little do they know that the dead are there, that her guests are in the realm of the dead. Two very similar kind of presentations. First sight, similar auditions, both imploring us to throw in our lot with them, and there is a clear choice to be made. Now, which will it be? And it matters, doesn't it? Because there are two very different potential outcomes, depending on which one we plump for. It's a big decision. And it's no surprise where this comes in the book of Proverbs. We're just coming up, actually, to a key point in the book. From chapter 10 on, if you look over, the whole feel of the book starts to change. Chapter 10 is where the Proverbs themselves actually begin. Up to this point, there have been a whole series of speeches and poems about wisdom, or indeed by wisdom personified. But here is the moment of decision. Is this a bus we want to get on or not? Is it the path that we want to tread, or is it not? Are we going to choose to enter the house of wisdom or the house of foolishness? As we approach the main part of the book from chapter 10 on, this is decision time. But to make that decision easier, the last of those speeches really sums up the greatness of wisdom. Chapter 8 hammers the last nail into the coffin of any desire we might have to pursue some less worthy way than the path of wisdom. So we're going to spend the rest of our time this morning looking just at chapter 8, the chapter that was read, and investigating just what it is that Lady Wisdom can do for us should we go down her path. So what are the benefits of living by wisdom? First, we're told, choose wisdom and you'll learn the truth. Choose wisdom and you will learn the truth. So back in chapter 8, we'll pick up in verse 4, and you find Lady Wisdom herself speaking to anybody who will listen. To you, O people, she says, I call out, I raise my voice to all humanity. You who are simple, gain prudence. You who are foolish, set your hearts on it. Listen, for I have trustworthy things to say. I open my lips to speak what is right. My mouth speaks what is true. For my lips detest wickedness. All the words of my mouth are just. None of them is crooked or perverse. To the discerning, all of them are right. They're upright to those who found knowledge. Having reliable information on which to base your life decisions is always useful, of course. That's why the Brexit debate that came to its conclusion, I guess, in Friday's withdrawal, it's been so difficult for all of us in our nation. Why? Because there's been so little to go on when it comes to facts and truths which are agreed by all sides. Everything has the appearance to the other side of being just an unanchored opinion and a claim or a projection. It just makes things so hard. It's why governments being open and transparent about the coronavirus and exactly where things stand with the progress of that virus, where it's gone to and so on, it's so vital so that people and institutions are able to take sensible precautions. We need reliable information. But we struggle with that in our personal lives too, don't we? Don't we struggle to find the truth? Put our finger on reliable information that will undergird our own personal decisions? That's a silly example perhaps, but you go out and buy a new TV, and as sure as eggs is eggs, somebody's going to try and sell you an extended warranty for an extra 75 quid or whatever it is. Just a single minor repair, they'll say, will set you back over £100, so how could you go wrong? Of course, what they don't say is that there's only a, 3% chance of anything going wrong in the first 3 years of a TV's life. They've somehow got you thinking that there's a significant chance that it could happen, when the truth is there's nothing of the kind. So somehow, without quite lying, they've got you making a decision on the basis of effectively bad information. And wisdom won't do that, we're told here. Wisdom will tell you the way it is, the way things really work. Listen, says wisdom, for I have trustworthy things to say. I open my lips to speak what is right. Of course, the Proverbs themselves are not universal laws. And we'll need to take care over these next few weeks not to read them as though they are. No, they are general observations about the way the world generally works and people generally work. There are always going to be plenty of exceptions in particular circumstances. But for all that, as long as we do read them as patterns and norms rather than as scientific laws, we will find reliable and true information as a basis for our life decisions. Second benefit of wisdom. Choose wisdom and you'll be able to distinguish right and wrong. Verse 12. I, wisdom, dwell together with prudence. I possess knowledge and discretion. To fear the Lord is to hate evil. I hate pride and arrogance, evil behavior and perverse speech. We saw right at the start of this book, didn't we, that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. But what does it mean to fear the Lord? Well, we thought about that briefly. To have reverence for him, yes. To have respect for him, yes. But actually, one of the key ingredients of fearing the Lord when you read the Bible is actually obedience. Doing and approving of things that please God, and avoiding and disapproving of what displeases him. Now, you may remember where that expression, the fear of the Lord, first comes in the Bible. Anybody want to venture a guess or an answer where that phrase first comes, the fear of the Lord? I'll tell you, I'll be kind. It was back in Deuteronomy chapter 10. And there was Moses addressing the people of Israel. And he says, Deuteronomy 10, verse 12, and now, O Israel, what does the Lord your God ask of you? But to fear the Lord your God, to walk in all his ways, to love him, to serve the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, and to observe the Lord's commands and decrees that I am giving you today for your own good. The fear of the Lord has always been, or at least included, doing the right things before God and conversely avoiding the wrong things. And what we're struggling with at the moment in Western culture is that as you'd expect when the fear of the Lord is largely absent, that we simply have no reliable way of distinguishing right and wrong, do we? There is no universal benchmark of reality left to us now that God is out of the picture. There's no anchor, there's no grid, there's no recognised arbiter or umpire There is no magnetic north for our moral compasses to point to. So yes, we as a society can set ourselves a noble aim, like let's all go carbon neutral because the biggest issue facing the world is climate change. And that's a fine aim, isn't it? Until we start thinking about how far we're prepared to go to achieve that aim. Is it okay or isn't it to skip school to attend a demonstration? To superglue the locks of all non-electric cars? Did you get that? To punish couples financially for having carbon-producing children? This is all children. Or to bomb an oil refinery? You got a problem with any of those things? Yes? Well, you clearly don't think climate change is that important. It's not the final answer. It's not the main achievement that we're aiming for. No? You have no problem with any of those things? Well, at least you're consistent. But you're also a little bit scary, to be honest. You see the problem? If you lose the objective perspective, if you take God out of the picture, how on earth do you decide? Why would you even think that climate change produced human extinction is a problem? People use all sorts of long words and speak very eloquently on these kind of subjects, but in the end, all they can really say is, well, it just doesn't seem right. It just doesn't seem right. But as far as you can go. Until you bring God and his wisdom back into the fight. See, actually, I think there's a real thirst around for clear moral direction. And the danger is that without God and his wisdom, people start turning in disturbing directions to find it. And that's why environmentalism and even radical environmentalism has filled the gap, in a sense. It's given young people, and quite a few older people too, the objective determiner of morality that they crave, having lost God's wisdom. We want to know, don't we? What's right and what's wrong? Well, here it is. God's wisdom. To fear the Lord is to hate evil. Keep God in the picture and you can distinguish wrong from right. Third benefit. Choose wisdom rather than foolishness and you will excel in leadership. Verse 15. By me kings reign and rulers issue decrees that are just. By me princes govern and nobles, all who rule on earth. I love those who love me. Those who seek me find me. With me are riches and honour, enduring wealth and prosperity. My fruit is better than fine gold. What I yield surpasses choice silver. I walk in the way of righteousness, along the paths of justice, bestowing a rich inheritance on those who love me and making their treasuries full. I wonder if you think of yourself as a leader in any sense. That may not be the first thing that comes into your mind as you look at yourself in the mirror in the morning, a leader. But the truth is, to some degree, most of us do exercise some kind of leadership in some context, don't we? And maybe as a line manager in the office or the workshop, maybe as a teacher or a trainer, maybe in church, maybe in your areas of ministry or your connect group, maybe in the home, in your family, or a husband or a parent, just an older sibling. Maybe you're just a bit older than somebody else, full stop, which covers most people. There is a degree of natural authority that you wield as you advance through life. And the question is not so much are you a leader as when you do lead others, how will you do it? If If you want to do it well, you'll listen to God and apply his wisdom. Verse 15, by me kings reign and rulers make laws that are just. See, wisdom will help you to say things and to do things which are good for those under your responsibility. It'll make you a good leader in whatever context you do lead. Fourth benefit. Choose wisdom and you'll grasp the world and how it works. If you've been here the last few weeks, you'll know the definition of wisdom that we've been trying to work through. Wisdom is about working out the currents of God's world and working with those currents rather than against them so as to do life well. Now, I guess we can all think of wise people that we know, but the key thing to remember is that wisdom didn't start with those people. In fact, it didn't start with people at all. It started an awful lot further back than that. Listen to wisdom speak in verse 22. The Lord brought me forth as the first of his works, before his deeds of old. I was formed long ages ago, at the very beginning, when the world came to be, when there were no watery depths, I was given birth. When there were no springs overflowing with water, before the mountains were settled in place, before the hills, I was given birth. Before he made the earth or its fields or any of the dust of the earth. Verse 30. Then I was constantly at his side. I was filled with delight day after day, rejoicing always in his presence, rejoicing in his whole world, delighting in mankind. Wisdom, it seems, was part of the equation in the creation of God's world. It's almost the way things are put together. It's the little bag at the bottom of your IKEA box, you know the one I mean, full of screws and dowels and a bit of glue and some bolts and those kind of things. It's the kit that gives stability to the whole structure. It ensures it doesn't just collapse. If you haven't got that, there's no point even starting on your construction. That's what wisdom does to the world. It dictates how everything holds together and works together. So if you want to understand the way the world works, go to wisdom. Go to chapter 10 and start reading. Fifth and final benefit of wisdom in this wonderful chapter that undergirds the choice that we're being asked to make in chapter 9. Chapter 8, verse 32, we'll find choose wisdom and you'll find God's blessing. Choose wisdom, you'll find God's blessing. Verse 32, now then, my sons, listen to me. Blessed are those who keep my ways. Listen to my instruction, be wise, don't disregard it. Blessed are those who listen to me, watching daily at my doors, waiting at my doorway. For those who find me find life and receive favour from the Lord. But those who fail to find me harm themselves. All who hate me love death. If you're not a Christian, then let me ask you, do you want to live with some kind of relationship with God? Do you want to live in his favour, enjoying his blessing in some way? Do you? Well, start by choosing wisdom, recognising the patterns that he's built into the world. It's not all random. There's design here. There's also hope here. If you are a Christian, do you want to grow in your relationship with God? Do you want to experience the fullness of those blessings that God has mapped out for you? Well, then again, choose wisdom. I wonder if there's some major decision that you're wrestling with just at the moment, or some relationship that's causing you angst. You just don't know how to handle it. Maybe there's something about your routine in life, your rhythm, your daily priorities as you're living it at the moment, that you're thinking is out of kilter in some way. You're not sure how to think about it. Well, folly is always an option, isn't it? The quick fix, the feel-good solution, the short-term approach, the ill-considered option. So why not step back and choose wisdom instead, though? But I do need to say this, despite everything I'm saying so far, this is not just about making a good fist of daily life, trying to get through in a way that life kind of works. And many years after this book was put together, Jesus himself picked up on this whole language of wisdom. He told a little story, a become very well-known story, about what it is to be wise. The wise man, he said, built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. The foundation Jesus is talking about, of course, is his own words, his own teaching, the direction that he, as master of all, gives to his servants. That little story comes right at the end of the very famous teaching of his, the Sermon on the Mount. The teaching had been given his followers. And the message is clear. It's really an update on what we've been seeing this morning of wisdom. If you want to live the path of true wisdom, he's saying, that is, if you want to really get what the world is about, really get to see what eternity itself is about, then you'll want to make sure Jesus himself is the foundation of your life. Pick him as the guide who will steer you through, the one who will keep you in the path of God's blessing, not just in this life, but the life to come. And pick him as the master of every call you have to make. And pick him too as the rope to hang on to be pulled back every time you stray from the path of God's blessing. The one who will assure you of an eternal future through what he's done for you. Pick him today. And pick him tomorrow. And pick him every day. And however fierce the storm may be, your house will not fall. Because you will have chosen the path of true wisdom. Let's take a moment of quiet, shall we? Ponder some of those words of these chapters. Consider what wisdom's call is on our lives today. Our Heavenly Father, we want to acknowledge that we don't always choose wisdom. The decisions we're called on to make in our daily lives, in the way we run our lives, in the way we choose our priorities, in the way we conduct our relationships, wisdom is not always number one. grateful, Father, that despite our failure here, despite the times in which we do choose the path of foolishness, you have perhaps kept our house from total destruction. Yet, Father, we do want to experience the path to your blessing. So we ask you to take our lives and once again found them more fully, more completely on the foundation that is Jesus and his teaching and his mastery of us. We ask it not just so that our own houses will not fall, but so that the glory of the architect, of you, our Heavenly Father, might increase all the more. For your sake now we ask it. Amen.